Okay.
Now this.
Yeah, now you're good. Okay, here you go.
Okay. If I could have everybody's attention, I gave you these right here, and what these are these are letters to the MO-KNE chapter, and that's the Missouri, Kansas, and Nebraska. They're asking us to every March, Trio and Garrett professionals across the country meet in DC to advocate for our programs such as Trio and Gear. Students with our congressional representatives, the MKNE is asking our members and non-members to all contribute to our maximizing our advocacy efforts. So basically, the person that we write to is Michael Kozart, and we're basically saying like why we support Trio, like how does it help you. So if you guys could turn this into us by Thursday, whenever, the fourth Thursday, so that'd be good.
How do you spell his last name?
Kozart, it's Cozart.
And is it Michael with the E or A-E?
It's Michael. Yeah.
Thank you guys for doing that too. This actually just helps our program, and so that helps the Department of Ed to make sure that our programs are funded and that you guys are taking advantage of that. So the more that you guys can put in there, the better for our program. So thank you guys for doing that.
Oh yeah.
And then
Next Thursday. Oh, okay, and this Thursday, we are having the what is it? The Game of Life. Yeah, financial aid game of life. Basically, we're gonna have different stations, and we're gonna give you like a certain budget. So then, whatever station you go to, it's gonna like how you spend your money and everything, and we're gonna get to, just see how you budget and everything. So keep that in mind on Thursday. Oh, did.
Alright. Welcome to our financial wellness seminar on money and stress. I'd like to introduce our speakers. From Meritrust, we have Ryan, who's a regular. Join the camera, Drew. Join the camera. Thank you.
Frame or money.
Yes, perfect. And here's a gift for coming to present. And we'd also like to welcome Cheyenne.
Cheyenne is also with us tonight. All the way from the East Branch. Right down the road, right down the sidewalk.
And here's a gift for you as well. Thank you guys for coming tonight.
Thanks. Chris, whose name is here, was not able to be with us tonight. He's in Wichita, so he asked me if I'd step in and do it. So I'm a noob at this, so you just bear with me. And we'll get through it together. Let me grab some of these. Did everybody or no one get some of these slides? I'll hand them out. Yeah, I'm going. Did everybody get signed in yet? Cool. Assuming it's a yes. Everybody have an ink pen that needs one? All that good stuff? Anybody need anything before we get started? Okay. Ron, are we good from the back? We're good from the back. Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about money and stress. Let me grab. Okay. Overview. We're just going to touch on the causes of financial stress, health factors, how our bodies might react to stress, and financial stress specifically, research regarding finances and health, and how to avoid money stresses, how to deal with the stress itself as a symptom, and then tools to move forward with progress. So I get this right. There we go. So, oh my goodness. How about I just touch it? We'll do that. How about factors? There we go. 80% of the economy says, 80% say that the economy is a source of ongoing stress. 73% of Americans name money as the number one source of stress, and 50% of Americans say they are increasingly stressed about their ability to provide for their family. So, I'll try to be fairly vulnerable with you. So this is what it looks like in my life. I don't know if y'all can relate to this. Probably multiple times a month at some point, I have thoughts run through my head about what do I do if this doctor bill doesn't get covered by the insurance, or what if the insurance doesn't approve this testing, or, because then you got to pay it out of pocket. So where's it going to come from? Is the emergency savings account going to be enough to cover it? Is it not? What happens if I wipe it out? Will there be enough next month to build the savings account back up? And all that kind of stuff. So anything, I think when they talk about the money being a source of stress, it's even just having those thoughts throughout the month. How much time do you think about it? Does it feel anxiety provoking or not? Hey, Ariel, there's some slides right there if you want to grab them on your way through. We're just getting started talking about stress and money, so. Then you get called out for being late. More than 25%, more than 1 in 4 adults admit to not paying bills on time. Of the 51% of marriages that end in divorce, financial struggle will rank as the primary cause. It's often thought of that there are spenders and there are savers. So some temperaments and personalities drift towards spending. Some temperaments and personalities drift towards saving. So somebody's got $100, they think, even if you think you put a budget together, somebody's got $100 and $100 is for eating out. There's going to be one personality probably that by the end of the month is going to spend little of the none of that, right? And they're going to be like, I saved it and I've got it for next month. So now I'm $100 ahead for next month. Whereas there's going to be another personality that's like, hey, I put that 100 there to spend it, and I haven't done my job unless it's gone. So we need to empty that thing out. So you can imagine those two personalities. Not that there's not other personalities out there available as well, but if you take two personalities like that, there can be an opportunity for a lot of growth, because sometimes the savers don't know how to enjoy things. And they don't know how to spend a little bit and have a little bit of fun, and so the spenders can help them, encourage them to have some fun along the way of life. But then also, sometimes the spenders just spend and spend and spend until it's gone, and so it's helpful to have the savers to try to get some perspective about, it's not the end of the world not to spend every dime that's in that account before the end of the month. So. The cost of post-secondary education is rising faster than inflation, or the value of the dollar, and it has for the past 8 years. So think about acts of desperation. These things kind of fall in a whole different range, but fringe banking services, think of payday loans, title loans, things like that are considered extremely risky behavior because you really put yourself in a vulnerable position. To have to pay those back at a really high interest rate. Those are considered fringe banking services. Gambling or get rich quick, lottery tickets.
That's a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Why did you choose white as your background?
I didn't. I don't know why it's showing up on this screen like this.
Oh, it's on here?
But on here it's actually got, it's colored differently. So we're on page 2 if that helps, on the bottom, last slide.
Thank you.
Yep. Breaking promises that you're keeping, manipulating and using family members to get money, anger, theft, sometimes suicide. Cost of financial stress to our health, insomnia, not being able to sleep at night because of the stress, grinding of teeth during sleep, stomach aches, weight loss or gain. Thinking about some of the eating habits that might be associated with stress, headaches, skin eruptions, substance abuse, and depression. Let's see where we're at. Research. Here we go. So the ability to think of a solution, to handle what comes our way, find several solutions when confronted, to have confidence to deal with unexpected events, and to solve problems by investing effort. Attitudes that contribute to increased self-efficacy. So what Chris's intent of putting this together was to try to kind of paint a picture for how to deal with stress in a way that's helpful. And so he works with he does financial counseling, so he works with a lot of folks independently to try to help them walk through their financial situations. And so a lot of them have different levels of debt. Maybe they have no debt, maybe they're working towards goals, but likely that they're in some state of financial crisis, and Chris is trying to work with them in Devlin and trying to help them get through that. And so he talks about the significance of having the dialogue that we have with ourselves. If you sit down to do a budget and you say, you know what, I really suck at budgeting, you're probably going to suck at budgeting no matter what you do, because even if you do a good budget, you still think you suck at budgeting. So being open to the fact that some of this stuff is within your possibility to do something about, or that it is a possibility for you to be able to do something about it and change it. And then just try to start kind of figuring out what are some small wins along the way. So we'll work through some of those tools real quick. That's what is it. I'm trying to make sure that I respect your all's time. So this is the order specifically that our financial counselors walk through in terms of priorities. So you think of shelter, food, transportation, payment for transportation, maintenance of transportation, the kids, utilities, medicine, and then kind of second tier, home maintenance, debt, household items, health and beauty items, charity and savings, and then finally entertainment expenses, extras, and miscellaneous. So do you see some of the, I mean, it's not complicated, right, to see some of the tiers. But if you're like me, you're tempted maybe to take this entertainment expenses and extras and move it over here. And so there's kind of this idea of you put the big rocks in first. I don't know if have you ever taken like a jar? I don't know if you ever did this. Maybe this is nerdy. You take somebody, like they have these presentations and they have jars and it's got all these rocks in it and sand and all this stuff. And they dump it out on the table and they try to put it back in the jar. So effectively what has to happen is you have to put the big rocks in the jar first, and then you put the smaller rocks in, and then you sprinkle in the sand that's left. So the point is to draw an analogy that you figure out what the big rocks are, those are your first priorities, and you take care of those first. And then you deal with the second rocks, the smaller, the medium ones, and then you deal with the sand. And when you do that, it all fits, but if you get them in the wrong order, they don't work out. And so the shelter, the food, the transportation, maintenance, those necessities obviously are our big rocks. So we're trying to cover those first. And we're going to put those in first. And what that looks like is if we're putting a budget together, then we want to try to organize our budget around being able to take care of those things first. So if you have a week where your paycheck is higher than it is on another week, maybe there's some big rocks that week you pay for out of that paycheck to make sure that it gets covered. Like my wife and I's paycheck is not the same. So 1 week we have a bigger paycheck, maybe that's the week we need to pay rent. Because if we don't, there's a chance rent's not going to get paid the next week when we have a smaller paycheck, for example. And so stuff like that, making sure that those big rocks get covered, and then moving on to the smaller rocks like home maintenance, dealing with debt. I would almost think debt would be a big one, but our financial counselors believe that the biggest one is really like having shelter and having transportation. So as much as maybe even debt causes a stressor, if we lose shelter and we lose transportation and the ability to get to work, then it becomes a lot worse. So trying to, again, put it in context and help it have its place, and not let it become this huge, ginormous overwhelming emotional issue. Household items, health and beauty items, charity, saving money. Again, trying to make sure that we pay all of our major expenses and our necessities first, our needs, and then saving is a privilege. As much as we'd all like to save money and have an account with tons of money just sitting in it and being able to add to it every month, it's really a privilege to be able to do that. So we want to make sure that we cover our needs first. And then finally, our entertainment and our expenses, and I don't know what that looks like, movie, shopping, eating out, and different stuff. Everybody's a little bit different probably. Chris's word to a lot of folks is you don't have to be overly sophisticated to be in control. Finding a system that works. And one of the things that he talks about is making a plan. So have you all, did we do this, I think last time Chris was here and I was out of town. Did you all go through the budget last time on the spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yeah, so those are really helpful. I fill one of those out every month. I fill in the dates on like when those are due every month. I change them because like our gas bill is different one month than it is the next month. So I go in and change the numbers every month. And then when I pay that, I just put a mark next to it every month. So it helps remind me that I've already paid that bill. I'm not going to get a late penalty. And I can also pay in advance that way if I want to too. Like as the bills come in, I don't have to wait for the bill to be due to go ahead and pay it. If it's due on March 15th, but I get it on February 17th, technically I've got 4 weeks to pay it, but I can go ahead and pay it right now, and then I don't have to deal with it in March. That way when March's bill comes, I'm actually paying April's bill. Does that make sense? So I'm a month ahead. So that's helpful, and then I just mark it on there that I paid it, which is nice. So I just share that with you. I'm not like a professional budgeter or anything, but we do a budget every month. So a lot of this is just practice. It's not like there's a perfect way to do it. There's some helpful ways to do it, and then we just figure out what works for us better than month and month as months go on. So my wife and I have been married like 5 years. And about every 6 or 8 months, we sit down and re-go through the budget again, just because stuff changes, life changes. If you have to go to the doctor, you take on medical expenses, that changes your monthly budget because you have to start paying those back. And so maybe money that you had allocated towards savings now doesn't go towards savings because you're using it to pay medical bills. If you take on a new job and you travel a lot more, like you got to pay for the gas, so that's got to come from somewhere. So just trying to consider those things as they change. Another word Chris mentions is, and again, I'm sorry this stuff didn't come up in color, but it's on the slides. We're on, trying to think, where is he? Start small. Is it on 5? Okay, sorry, I took off. I got off my slides here. Create margin within your finances. So start small and build a habit of saving. Emergency funds are not investing, but they're more like insurance. Does that make sense? Because insurance, the idea with insurance is that you pay for somebody else to take risk for you. So I buy car insurance because there's a chance I'm going to wreck my car. So that chance symbolizes risk. So when I pay the insurance company for insurance, they're taking the risk for me. So if I wreck my car, they pay for it. And so the savings account is like that because the savings account's sitting there and it's kind of covering the risk that if something happens and I come up with an emergency expense, that's what that savings account's for. It covers that risk for me in case I need it. If I don't need it, it doesn't cost me anything, it just sits there. But if I do need it, then it's there. Communication's a big deal, so communicating with a spouse, roommates, whoever it is that you live with, so that there's some clarity about expectations, right? So here's an example. I could be really granular and extremely detailed and controlling, and put every single thing down on the budget. But I've realized in marriage that's not realistic, because there's going to be stuff that comes up that's not in the budget, and I can't plan for everything. So, sounds kind of stupid, but if a cutting board breaks and we need a new cutting board, that has to come from somewhere. But I'm not going to budget for that because I can't predict when the cutting board is going to break. So we, like, for example, have communicated, and my wife and I have like a margin account, basically, that just, it's like every week he gets a little bit of money and we buy random expenses out of that margin account. So we try to keep it within that range because that helps us stay in our budget for the month. So we just budget, we're going to put X amount of dollars in there and it gets spent towards cutting boards, face wash, toilet paper, the random stuff that you don't necessarily plan when you're going to buy it. He talks about Dave Ramsey's baby steps. Have you all covered the baby steps at all? He talked about the baby steps. Ramsey's, are you all familiar with Dave Ramsey? Dave Ramsey, this financial guru.
He is amazing.
Yeah, this financial guru. And Ramsey's got a pretty rigid one-size-fits-all. And that's not to criticize him, that's the way it works. One size fit all. You do it his way, it works. It's pretty rigid. And so he has some steps on how to deal with debt. And they're on page 6. Those 1 through 7, those slides. Those are his 7 steps. So if you thought about it as if, like, I need goals and I need a roadmap to getting out of debt and trying to get myself in a good financial position, this is his roadmap essentially. And it's nice because they're there, so it's very clear goals if you're interested in that kind of way of approaching it. Save $1,000 in an emergency savings account, pay off debt using the debt snowball, save 3 to 5 months of expenses. So he would do he encourages folks to do them in this order. Save 3 to 5 months of expenses in an emergency savings. So you notice his emergency account was $1,000 at number 1, and that was to give him some margin to get out of debt. And once he got out of debt, think about all that money that you were paying towards debt, whatever that is. Now you're going to take that and apply that towards the 3 to 5 months of expenses. And then 4th, start investing in household income in the IRAs, college funding for children, pay off home early, build wealth, and give and be generous. This is not super realistic for everybody. What's that?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
What's a debt snowball?
Yeah, he calls it the debt snowball. So you start with a small debt and you just you throw everything at it until you get paid off. And then you go to the next one and the next one, and you just climb your debts. So if you got a $300 credit card, a $700 credit card, and a $3,000 doctor bill, you hit the $300 credit card and you throw everything at it with the minimum being put towards the others. And then as soon as that $300 credit card is done, you throw everything at the $700 credit card with the minimum being put towards the doctor bill at that point. That'd be all that's left. And then once you get that $700 credit card paid off, you throw everything towards that $3,000 hospital bill.
So you're saying if our average income in the household is like $10,000 a month, you want us to invest $1,500 in an IRA?
Is that what Ramsey says? Invest 15% of household income in Roth IRA. That's Ramsey's goals. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm saying for so one thing to keep in mind when you think about Ramsey's stuff is Ramsey's been extremely successful at helping people get out of debt and save money. It's very rigid, and there's not a lot of room for discretion. So, because it's very black and white. And so that's part of the reason it works for a lot of people, is because if you think about it, there's not a lot of margin to like figure it out to your specific scenario. You just walk through these steps. And if it takes 6 months, take 6 months. If it takes 6 years, take 6 years. That's not necessarily I don't think Chris would say this either, it's not necessarily the best fit for everybody, and I don't think Chris's approach when he meets with people for financial counseling, that's necessarily always the approach that he takes. But if someone doesn't have a place to start, it's at least a place to start. So I can tell you I'm 33, and so I'll just shoot real straight with you, be vulnerable. So I have debt. I'm also putting money in retirement. So I'm not like avoiding my retirement for the sake of just getting everything paid out of debt. I'd be really discouraged, I think, if I spent everything getting out of debt and then started putting money in my retirement and then had an emergency and had to go back into debt.
Isn't it the American way to be in debt?
It's pretty realistic, right? I mean, if you're going to buy a house, you're going to go in debt probably.
Right.
Or at least, I expect if I ever buy a house, I'll take out a loan to do it. So.
Will they take like 40% of your retirement if you withdraw early?
I'm not sure there's a standard of like exactly how much it
They
is.
took 40% out of
Yeah, I was going to say.
People trying to retire. If you need the money and then you try to go get it, yeah, have fun.
Yeah, I think there's also part of I'm not a specialist on retirement, but I think part of the conversation with retirement too is pre-tax, post-tax. So you pay pre-tax for, like, pay taxes on it now and put it in, so I don't have to pay taxes on it when I take it out, or put it in now without paying taxes on it, and then pay the tax whenever I take it out. My parents are going through some of that right now because they're
I
retired.
guess if you can afford it, then retirement is typically not.
So I'm watching them go through it. So so we have about 15 minutes. So we got done, I guess, pretty early. Any thoughts, questions about budgeting, or any thoughts about this? There's some of the resources there on the back. I guess, let me ask you this. If I've been vulnerable with you, I've told you that I had debt, I've told you that, I don't know what else I told you, but, so I told you I would use a monthly budget. Out of curiosity, how many of you all have like a monthly rhythm that you go through where you kind of know your budget, you know how much money you have every month and what your bills are? Just out of curiosity for the folks that don't, and I'm not saying, please don't hear me say morally, like, you don't do this, you're a bad person. It's not what I'm suggesting. Just out of curiosity though, what are obstacles to doing it?
It takes time.
Sure, it takes time.
Having money to actually budget,
Yeah, having the money to budget. So what is that like? Would you tell me more? Like, what is that?
like not having an income,
Uh-huh.
it's hard to budget
Like
with no money.
being in college mostly.
Sure. Uh-huh.
Budgeted out to where it's, we have that in our rent paid and whatever we need, so we just don't get that $10 an hour, $50 an hour paycheck. We have to budget it across 3 or 4 months.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so the big rocks are huge, right? I mean, that's what I'm hearing you say. Because if the big rocks don't get done first, it's like month 3. Then there's no money left to pay them. Yeah, sometimes I'll hear teachers say they get paid once a month, like public school teachers or something. They'll say they get paid, and I'm like incredibly impressed that that they can budget, because you have to really sit down and figure out. You got one check a month, I think, to figure out how you're going to pay all of your bills off one check a month. And it's not that it's always impossible. It's just to be able to sit down and figure that out every week, what bills you're going to pay. And so, yeah, that's good feedback. So I heard, got to have the money to budget. It takes time. Anything else?
I guess would you give us one takeaway then? So one good takeaway that you guys got today, and then we should be good. So one good takeaway that either of them shared or Brian shared about today that was helpful for you? Good.
Make a new budget every year.
Every 6 to 8 months?
Well, we sit.
You said 6 to 8?
Yeah, well, my wife and I sit down about every 6 to 8 weeks. No, we probably do it every 6 to 8 months. Yeah, but it's really like just whenever we experience a big change. So,
But
like,
this also with the saving as a privilege, I always think like, as soon as I get money, I just put it all in my savings. But then I don't like realize that, okay, I needed $100 or whatever, so, taking that back and put,
I've done that so many
now I see
times.
that, I'm like, okay.
I've done it so many times. I think if I just move it over there, we won't spend it, right?
Yeah.
But then we end up needing it for something, and so I end up having to like move it back over there, And my wife's like, "Why'd you put all that money in the savings? Like, we can't do it. Like, we got bills." And I'm like,
Honestly.
"Cause I want to save it. I just want to save it."
What about anybody else? Anybody else? Go. Somebody gotta go.
1 in 4 adults do not pay their bills on time.
Yep,
Ooh, that's a big one.
25%.
33% don't even have a budget. Wait, don't only have a budget, right?
What?
32%?
33% of people,
So 1/3 of
Budget.
people have a budget.
1/3. Okay. Who hasn't gone yet? No, you guys have. Okay.
51% of marriages financial issues.
Yeah, they claim financial. Yeah.
Who's over here at this table? I know you guys haven't done it yet, right?
Know your priorities, like income, transportation, utilities, and all that.
Cool. Alright, 2 ladies in the back, here and then right here.
I learned about like the health policy stuff.
Okay.
To budget before any of this actually becomes a problem that I have to deal with.
Cool.
To save money on like stuff that we need to pay first.
Should I take it, guys? Good? Alright.
kids are expensive.
Kids are expensive. Yes, they are.
Don't do drugs when you have a budget.
Okay, fair enough. Last one over here. Did you already do one? Jude.
Learning priorities.
What if somebody needs that one?
She's grilling you.
I know, grilling everybody.
Deal with stress.
Deal with stress? Okay, so basically just wanting to make sure that you guys are getting a really good outcome. And then again, just kind of reiterating this, all this stuff can eventually come up to stress. And then I didn't know about the nail biting. I mean, all this stuff, I was like pretty shocked. So again, if you guys need any help, we have Ameritrust. And then our last part of our financial wellness series, thank you. Our wellness series is on Thursday. And if I'm not mistaken, if they make it to all 3, there may be a drawing for those who have went to all 3 of those events. So Thursday, if you guys can come back, we'll have that last financial series and we'll get to play the game of life, which I'm pretty excited. So thank you guys again. If you guys don't have any questions, please make sure you fill out those surveys and then thank our speakers for coming over. Yes.
Conflict management next week on the 5th, and then grade checks are due on the 8th, Friday.
Oh,
There's
yes.
some grade check forms on the desk over there.
Okay, so make sure you guys do that.
What's the drawing about?
I can't tell you, I don't know.
Secret prize.
It might be some food, it might be something, I don't know, I can't tell you, so you just have to show up.
Thank you, Ameritrust.
Thank you guys, thank you.
Keep it here.
Okay, okay. We should do this.